Welcome again, Keepers of Light, and I call you that because you are just that, Keepers of Light. I'm on here again, and it is the only time I've ever recorded 3 days in a row and come on consecutively in this way. And this is because I am guided to just trust the process and come on here and speak in the way that I am now. I was feeling the urge and need to prepare, thinking that, okay, don't we always prepare for things before we enter into them? And I mean, rather than just come on here and hit record, why wouldn't I sit and prepare something to say? And the answer that I received from my guides is that this is no longer the person that I am and the person that I am becoming, because I am already prepared, and that I have been preparing for this moment and these moments for a very long time, actually from the point of incarnation. And so it must be the same for everybody, that we all are prepared for the moment that is at hand, regardless of how difficult, regardless of what is being thrown at you. And my work is to communicate the energetic perspective about what is occurring within our present reality. This is very important because it helps us to reframe ourselves and to enter into the new people that we are becoming. It is the reality now that we all are in the process of being stripped away. All those elements that are unsustainable are now being stripped away from us, and that it doesn't necessarily isn't necessarily reserved to what we're watching around us that is appearing to crumble before our eyes, but it is and exists on a very personal level, in that what we're seeing and what we're viewing from the outer perspective of what is occurring is really an individual internal process of crumbling. And one of the main things that is changing is that we're no longer having to rely on fear in the way that we were relying and using it as a tool of creation. It once was that we were using fear as a means to manifest our realities, and that we were being controlled by it. And now there's this shift that is occurring where we are no longer having to rely on fear as the basis to the creation of our realities. Actually, the basis of our recreation of reality, because there is a rebirthing of a new earth occurring in this very moment of crumbling. They both exist at the same time, and the reason being that because we are in this polaric sense of perceiving reality, then it always is that there's both things occurring at the same time. Like, for example, like in the moment of your greatest love is can also be the moment of your greatest fear. And so this moment, if it is a moment of your greatest fear, then it is also and presents also the potential for the experience of your highest level of experience of love. And the guides want me to just talk about going back to the basics, the the basic way in which we are existing. They want me to always come on here and to serve as a reminder to everyone that we that there are components to reality that we are now learning to grasp in terms of reperceiving, so that we can start using those same elements as tools for creation rather than tools of disempowerment. And so it's not necessarily that we're needing to find new elements and new factors in our lives, but we can use those same elements. We can use those very moments of experiences that you're having on a moment to moment basis are your point of empowerment. They present they present as a open door to the potential of self empowerment. Um, I find it interesting that my guides just find a way to kind of organize my thoughts in that way, that when I do communicate, I'm surprised at the end, because I come back and I'm like, okay, you didn't even you didn't even really have to write this out. You Because in the past I relied a lot on having to write and having to in essence train myself into getting to a point of trusting the universe, of trusting myself. And this is really the basics to what the human being is naturally programmed to be: self trusting, and also trusting of the universe. And these things have been conditioned out of us, given the way in which fear itself has played a role in that it has been used as a manipulative tool. And at the same time, because um, it has led people to seek to run from it rather than to examine it at that deeper level that presents for this opportunity of empowerment, of self-empowerment that I'm speaking of here. And so I am being shown that being able to draw a line so that the gap of understanding that may reside within this element of the human being kind of running away from these topics that really are the same topics that need to be examined at deeper levels, so that we can begin to inner transform ourselves. And when we inner transform ourselves, we then become more and more of the natural state of beingness that we were designed to be. So there is relevance to how you're perceiving what is occurring in your life. There are different levels and different spectrums of experiences that we're all having, regardless of what we are being shown, what we are being exposed to. It's kind of like that scenario that you have where everyone's growing up in the same family, but everyone comes back with a different version of story about what it is that they experienced. Everyone does have, and everyone existing does have programming within themselves, which then determines um, the way in which they're experiencing and therefore perceiving what is occurring. And so it does become important to become self-aware, to understand, particularly as it pertains to the topic today, to understand how fear itself has played a role in your life. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to understand and to be able to see that fear itself may have contributed or played out as more so a control factor in your life than it is um, a control factor in your life than it is a factor that is more empowering to you. It actually is very good news for you to be able to how to identify this and to see it in that way that I was saying, that now you're that's the beginning step to being able to look more deeply into it, so that you can give it the focus of attention that it is calling for, because fear itself exists, and depend upon its intensity, the more intense it is, the more it is calling to you for a message within it that will then show you and point the way in which your perception has been, let's say, manipulated, or we could say, your perception has been misconceiving the basic nature of what your human vessel is conditioned to be experiencing. At that homeostasis level of beingness, we are all a part of source, a part of consciousness, and we are all in harmony, and we are all reaching to reestablish and to recreate a world in which there is harmonization amongst one another. Yet it requires that we all do our individual work in order to get there. It no longer is a period of time where we can blame one another for what has been constructed. It becomes pointless to do so, because then we just, we run around in a circle blaming one another. What is more important now is for us to take responsibility. And I mentioned this word yesterday, that responsibility is really your ability to respond. Now, you will find that you have different levels of ability to respond, depending upon what situations are being brought to you. Some people respond better to, situations where they're pressured. Some people respond differently. We all have different levels of being able to respond to what our situations present. But there is also that potential for us to learn how to respond differently. And this is the call that we are all being asked to respond to. This call for us to respond in a way that does not propagate fear to continue to exist in a way that is disempowering to us. It may appear as though what is more important to handle in a situation is to engross yourself more and more into that realm of world where we are seeing the effect of the effect of the crumbling of reality as it is now, as is what now is occurring. But what is more important is for you to begin to attend to yourself. This is not to say that you should be doing anything other than reacting if you're needing to react in a physical way to situations that are calling for you to react in a physical way. This is to say that when you find yourself in those moments when you are engrossing yourself in that media perspective of information being sent to you that is causing and triggering your fears, that is the moment of opportunity for you to dig deeper into what those fears are, because those fears are really where the control factor lies. Those fears that you have within yourself are what now is controlling you in terms of how you are responding to the situation that is at hand, or what your choices will be to that. Because now that we are in a situation where things are crumbling, there is really there is no concrete way of predicting how how the crumbling how the crumbling of factors will affect you. What will happen is that you will find yourself being affected and being triggered. And in those moments, it is important not to get down on yourself for being triggered. It is important to allow yourself the space to provide yourself the level of nurturing that is needed in these moments. When you now attend to yourself, you also then will be more capable of attending to others who might be needing your assistance. So it's really kind of a reality where none of us are really able to run from the triggering of the effect of fear, the triggering of fear within us. And within the fear, you will, when you allow yourself to, when you give your body the space to receive the fear and experience the fear, and when you give your mind the space to observe what those fears are about, you can begin to understand that the reason why the fear existed in the first place, or rather that the fear exists in conjunction with love. The gap between understanding what fear represents in your own life, to bridge that gap, is to come into the understanding of how love is the factor that how love exists as a factor of that emotion of fear that is present in your life. You learn how to see both and how to understand both, so that you create a balance within yourself, which is really how you're rebalancing your energetic system. And once you've rebalanced your energetic system, then you work and come from a state of balance and neutrality. And this is how you begin to reprogram the functioning of your human beingness, so that it begins to work in a more ecosystematic manner, harmonized systematic manner of beingness. Anything else? The good news is that once all this is said and done, like once we're gonna one day look back to this moment, to these moments, and say, "Wow, what a trip that was! What a trip that was!" And I wouldn't give it up for anything else, because we will have traversed these territories together, and we will have learned how to climb the hills together, and we will get to the top, and we will rebuild, and we will restructure ourselves. Because see, the thing is there's this aspect of, and this will be the last point, there's this aspect of us believing and having been sold that there are impossibilities. When you look around, it's almost as though no one really can find a place where they can find the answer to meaningful action forward, other than pointing fingers at one another or waiting for the next person to do something. Uh, and this is simply because we kind of don't have been conditioned to believe that the power that we are needing in order to reform the world, or to help the world, is outside of us. But the good news is that we know, and that we are becoming more and more able to understand that the power is within us, that we can together work through any sort of contradictory frequency that is not in alignment to the highest level of living that we can have here on this planet. And that those factors that come up, that those frequencies and factors that come up that seem to present as being in as being against that which is harmonized in nature, are simply the way in which we have not yet looked into these topics, and looked into these topics such as fear, and seen through the illusion of what of what they are, so that we can stand in that state of power that we are naturally and have always been coming from. 22 minutes. I'm gonna leave the message here. I feel as though it's complete for now. This is going to be a continual thing, so I'll be back again, and I hope you will be here also. And I'm looking forward to more and more of these sessions. Until next time.